Welcome to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered with Perry Clark. This program looks at mental health from unique perspectives and shows you how to manage your life by finding the knots that help you and stay away from the ones that could be a disadvantage. Now, here is your host, Perry Clark.
Hello all, and welcome to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. I'm Perry Clark, licensed marriage and family therapist here with you. I should say, if I sound a little off, that's because my asthma has started thanks to allergies. So I'm coughing a lot, and if you suddenly hear me disappear for a little while, it's probably because I'm having a coughing fit. But that aside, welcome to the show. I want to remind you, as always, that this podcast is for entertainment and educational purposes only. It does not constitute working with a mental health provider. Please seek one out in your area or digitally online to work on your unique issues. So today's episode, we're helping out some friends of ours that, if you've listened to some of our past episodes, you may be familiar with Stack Deck Press. And they got a new project coming out that we're here to help support, and I've got a couple of the people there with it. But because of the subject matter, I do need to pause and sort of toot my own horn here for a brief moment. Another project that I have spent most of the last year working on, which is part of the Miskatonic Repository, which is the Writers Guild for Call of Cthulhu. So the Year of the Black Goat is now on sale on DriveThruRPG. It is a series of 12 scenarios written to be played with Call of Cthulhu, and I have one of those in there called Dead Letters from the Orchard. So please check it out on DriveThruRPG and go get your scare on. Now, to that point, we come to our gift, Stack Deck Press. So they've got a new project that is coming out this month of June that is called 4 Seasons of Fear, A Year of Queer Horror. 4 Seasons of Fear, A Year of Queer Horror is an LGBT+, or all LGBT+ horror comic anthology from award-winning publisher Stack Deck Press. It features horror stories from a queer perspective that draw inspiration from holidays and seasonal activities. 4 Seasons of Fear will feature work from over 24 all queer LGBT+ comic creators, including most notably Josh Trujillo, David Boher, and Wilfred Santiago. Filmmaker and producer Michael Varrati and cartoonist Tara Madison Avery will be handling editing duties on this project. The stories in 4 Seasons of Fear will be based on popular holidays such as Christmas, Easter, Halloween, some slightly less celebrated ones such as May Day, Juneteenth, and Rosh Hashanah, and seasonal events such as going back to school. The book will be a full-color standard comic series paperback, projected to be roughly 200 pages in length. And contributors include Tara Mason Avery, Jadzia Axelrod, and Rye Hickman, Christiana Bennett, David Boher, and Sean Peacock, Jose Cardonas, and Papa Maichi, BJ Cole, I apologize if I'm messing up some names, Colenglo, David Davenport, Richard Fairgrave, Chandra Free, and Stephen Emond, and Casey Kelly, just to name a few, as I've mentioned a few others there. But that being said, let's go ahead and welcome our guests, who happen to be Michael Varrati and Jadzia Axelrod. Welcome to Untying Knots.
Yes, very happy to be here. And thank you so much for taking the time to shout out and celebrate our project.
You're welcome, and I'm happy to help support it, because this, as some of my listeners know, during June, I try to do a bunch of queer-focused episodes, since I also identify as that, not just as a person of color. And so this is my way of supporting it. And let's be frank, I enjoy being able to have comics that I get to read that are more focused on us, as opposed to, well, plenty of hetero stuff.
Oh, happy to be here.
Yes.
So, as I ask everybody, how did you get started? Whether you got started into this project or just something in the art world, whatever you'd like to begin to help people know a bit about you.
Jadzia? Well, how I got started is that many, many, many years ago, I was afraid of everything and I did not want to watch any scary stuff. And
I hear
then
that.
one day I happened to see in the TV guide, there we are dating my age, that's how we used to find out what was on, that there was going to be a double feature of a movie called Attack of the Killer Tomatoes and Return of the Killer Tomatoes. And they were playing on a television show called USA Up all night.
That's such a
and
heavy
I
question.
decided that
If you
I
got
wanted to
an
see
answer,
these movies
Michael, you
based
can
on
go
this
and take this
wacky
one.
title. And I begged and pleaded, and I asked my mom if I could stay up, and she very kindly said yes, but she was worried that I was going to freak out, so she was going to stay up and watch it with me. And I remember it very distinctly. We made a big bowl of popcorn. It was a Friday night. The movies played. I was very, very enamored. She fell asleep 15 minutes in. And then how it used to work was as soon as the double feature ended, they would play them again. And I stayed up and watched those movies back to back to back. And I always refer to that as sort of the baptism into cults, because I fundamentally understood that these were not the kind of movies that were being discussed by my friends. These were not the kind of movies that they were showing at the multiplex. They were different. And even though I didn't quite have the words yet, I felt a kinship to these outsider movies because I liked that they were different. I liked that they felt forbidden. And even though Killer Tomatoes was a comedy horror, it did provide the gateway for me to start watching things like Evil Dead, Nightmare on Elm Street, et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, skipping through a lot of other stuff, I did eventually become a filmmaker. And I work as a filmmaker, and I'm very interested in horror as a mechanism and horror as a tool for commentary and a tool for us to tap into things that the mainstream otherwise would not want to address. And in addition to my work as a horror filmmaker, I have long been an advocate for the intersection of queer identity and horror. And I've been hosting, among many other things, and writing about this phenomenon. I've been doing the panel at San Diego Comic-Con, the queer horror panel, for almost 2 decades now. And one of the things that brought us together, Tara and I, is that my panel sponsor is Prism Comics, which Tara works with. And several years ago at Comic-Con, we were sitting at the Prism booth, and I said to Tara, I was like, you know, queer horror is it. There's so many places you can take queer horror. We should figure out something to do together, because I also grew up loving comic books. And I wanted the opportunity to bring my love of queer horror into the comic book space, or at least contribute my voice, because there's so many amazing creators already doing a great work in the world of queer horror and comics. And I love all of those people, and I just wanted to get to hang out with them. And so I was just like, can we do something? And Tara said to me, well, sure, but there are queer horror anthologies. So what's going to make ours different? The sidebar is, in addition to my work as a horror filmmaker, I have this weird side path where I've written many, 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 many holiday movies. I've written Christmas movies and TV movies. And I always say I made the horror movie that your punk brother loves and the TV movie that your mom loves. And those are the two kind of identities that I exist in. And so I've always had this kind of space where holiday stories have impact. And I pitched to her, I was like, well, what if we do a book of queer horror holiday stories? And then that became the concept of 4 Seasons of Fear, where maybe not just holidays, but a calendar year of the experience of being queer in a world that treats you as other or monstrous, or you as queer person facing the other, the monstrous, and what those stories can be from the different perspectives and the different members of our community and their different lived experiences. And so that's where 4 Seasons of Fear came about. It's not just holiday horror. It's just living a year in the life of a world that is scary. So that's sort of how I came to this project.
Lovely. And what about you, Jadzia?
Yeah, if we want to go back to roots, I come from the Appalachian Mountains, which is a huge storytelling culture. I'm also Jewish, which also has a huge storytelling culture. So very early on, I was surrounded by stories and the way people tell stories and how they tell them. So I've always loved that. I've also always loved comic books and superheroes, but also comics not about superheroes, horror comics, science fiction comics, slice of life comics, all of it. I ate it up with spoons. And through that love of comics, I eventually got to work with DC Comics on the graphic novel Galaxy, the Prettiest Star.
Right.
And other works with Hawkgirl and such as that. And that is where I met Josh, who you mentioned earlier, who was doing Blue Beetle at the time that I was doing Hawkgirl. And we became friends. And so when this anthology came around, he came to me and said, Jadzia, do you have any ideas? We need some more holidays. Essentially, like all the obvious ones had been tapped at that point. And it's like, you've got some strange ideas. What do you got
so,
something?
Michael, you began to give us a sort of a taste of the project.
Has anyone claimed Rosh Hashanah?
Tell us a bit more about what's gone into this project and the work that's gone into bringing all these talents together and
I'm very happy to be part of this anthology. There is such a wealth of talent.
Well, it's certainly one thing to say that you want to do something, and as we know, it's definitely another to actually go about and do it. So when the idea first started to come together a couple years previous, Tara and I kept circling, how do we want to approach this? And finally, we met up and said, hey, now's the time. Let's make this happen. And we started making a list of calendar events, not just holidays, but, first snow, leaves changing, different things, start back to school. And we conceptualized what would it look like if we reached out to different creators and said, this is what we're going for. Are you interested? And could you pitch a holiday? And to Jadzia's point, we had some that we knew would be sort of expected. You can't do a queer horror anthology and not have Halloween.
Right.
But I also feel like, I wanted to see more holidays that don't just represent the Christian holidays. I wanted to see a calendar that spoke to a world culture, but I myself, I'm not Jewish. So I can't be the one to say, like, I'm going to write a Rosh Hashanah story.
Right.
We wanted to make sure that we started to reach out to a wide berth of people who could give us a calendar that didn't just reflect one geographic region, but like a global experience. And that was really what our aim was. And what was really wonderful is just the excitement of the creators who came back. Like, I have this idea, or even if it was a holiday that seems intuitive, the queer perspective takes it to a completely different place. I will tell you, when we decided to do this project, there were holidays that I thought no queer person's going to want to do the 4th of July. But we got several 4th of July pitches because guess what? Queer people are big mad at America right now. So it makes sense that would be a holiday that we would have some thoughts and feelings and need for catharsis over. And so that to me was what was really exciting, was to see the different perspectives, the different viewpoints. And we have some really, really wonderful takes on these holidays. I know that David Booher did the back to school story. Sonia Saturday is doing the July 4th story. Tara herself is doing a story about Lupercalia, which is an ancient holiday from Rome. I'm doing a Valentine's Day story. BJ Colangelo is doing a story about the first snowfall and a vampire's birthday party. And so I think that there's so many really great things. Jadzia's story about Rosh Hashanah, once I read the script, I was like, oh my God, this rocks. Like, this is the fun thing about getting those is the different holidays, the different perspectives, and the excitement. I just had William O. Tyler was on the podcast that I do with Peaches Christ. And William did a great story about Juneteenth for this story. And he talked about how it was really crucial to him when we asked to cover that holiday because he felt that it needed the representation. And I agree. And I'm glad that he did. So that to me has been the great joy of this, is just seeing the energy and the excitement and the creativity that everyone's been bringing to it.
Your thoughts, Jadzia?
Yeah, just how could you resist this pitch? Like someone coming to you and saying, we want a horror story based on a holiday, go for it. We all have these very, whether you're queer or not, you have a lot of emotions tied up in certain holidays. And some of that comes from how your family celebrated. And some of that comes from maybe to how your family didn't celebrate it. Or other things that are unrelated to your family, but more about the culture at large, and how we all have opinions about Christmas. Whether you're Christian or not, you have a Christmas opinion, I guarantee. And So there was that very attractive there, and to focus in on the queer element of that, like how does this make this special, make this unique, and make this come from a very personal perspective and a queer perspective. I'm a lesbian. I'm also a trans woman. I did not involve my trans identity in this story because I felt like the lesbian angle was enough for this particular story, and I think it was. But it was something that was personal in that way, and to talk about Rosh Hashanah, which is a holiday where you ask for forgiveness for the various sins that you've committed over the year so that you can start the new year off clean, was very appealing. Like there's a lot of attraction to that, to telling that story about like who gets to be forgiven, what counts as a sin, all of these things. As a writer, catnip, could not stop. And like to do a horror perspective where these sins are not just metaphysical ideas, but tangible ideas that are violent and bloody and sharp-toothed and sharp-clawed. That was also very appealing. So I came up with that idea very quickly once I settled in on the holiday. Rye, the illustrator, had showed me a photo that they had found from the 50s of these two women dancing. And it was one of those photos where it's like, if you know, those two women are in love. But if you didn't, they're just having a good time. They're just dancing. Good song on the radio. There were no guys around, right? So it was like one of those like, maybe not kind of things. And it was so compelling to me. And so when this idea came, I was like, we have to talk about
very nice
life
very
in the closet, the lies you have to
say
say in order to live that way.
One of the advantages I see with this and what you described is being other means we get to have a perspective on society
for the story.
These things
made
at
it
large
more visceral
that most other people won't.
I think we even used that photo as a reference for one of the panels.
Basically said
because it was such a powerful.
She hated that she had moved to LA
for both me
because
and
she
Ryan.
spent so much time in the car versus on the bus or train in New York, and she noticed how the population changed at 124th Street. And just seeing that was part of how she had made much of her comedy.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I think that perspective of an outsider, of someone who is not necessarily thought of in these holidays, especially things like Valentine's Day, Michael, like you were saying, which is a very straight person holiday.
Just think about how every year it's like how
There's
many
no
different
reason it
jewelry
has to
commercials
be. Everybody
come on.
falls in love. But when you think about Valentine's Day, you often think of
it was interesting to approach that holiday because it is one of the mass marketed holidays, but it's marketed in a very specific way. I'm glad that you mentioned that because
the queer spin on that.
It's always about that special bond this February. And that was something that I really looked at when crafting the story that I did, because I wanted to take a traditional horror trope and flip it into the world that we live in. And I have always been fascinated by the 80s slasher cycle, because I'm always interested in how, for some reason, we put Freddy and Michael and all of these people on lunchboxes, but really the people we should care about are these women who have to survive them, right? That is a really more interesting thing. But we see in all of these sequels, there's always just sort of like they bounce back. It's like, oh, my friends got killed last Halloween, but I'm fine. Or, like in Scream 2, it's like less than a year later, and she's just in drama school, and the biggest, thing that she's doing to protect her mental health is she has caller ID. And I'm like, no, you would be a mess. Yeah. And I wrote the Valentine's story as if it's the sequel to a story we didn't see. So it's the idea that we are getting the next Valentine's Day, and this boy who survived being attacked by a slasher. He's the final boy. And I was really fascinated by the relationship that he would have with the killer, because in the way these movies are constructed, it's a very unique thing. The only other person who could understand what you went through was the only other person who was there and lived. And this sort of like messed up psychology where it's like, this person changed my life, but now they're the only person who understands what I've experienced. And I was just really drawn to that idea that for Valentine's Day, it's like, this Valentine's Day, find the one who understands you. You know, like, this is the person. And I was just like, wow, fucked up would that be? Like, you know, so.
Well, as a therapist, I can tell you it happens way more than people think. The notion
That's so good.
that I see people who feel like they need to escape a situation in their family, and they think that this other relationship is different and wonderful and not going to be the same, and then it ends up being just another mirror of it, and they didn't realize it, and they're miserable in a different way but a similar way at the same time. And sitting with them to work out and recognize that, and like, yeah, if you we need to heal that, but it's like, if you want to have a relationship, you're gonna have to do some entirely different things to attract that. But yeah, I can very much relate to that and seeing all of it. And okay, because we've talked about this, I got to throw a couple of more shameless pitches in there, just because of this topic. So one of the authors on Year of the Goat with me is Maverick Hinsey. And so they have written, and there's two scenarios I'm going to talk about. One, they have Saturday the 14th, which is their homage to slasher horror. So you can pick that up on Drive-Thru RPG, as well as their other one called Friends of Dorothy. So yeah, especially if you're looking for some queer horror to run at your table, there's at least a couple you can work from. But just again, that standpoint of how we get to see and how we get to interact with this idea of horror. Just kind of thinking about, I think there was at least one or two attempts at trying to do some horror movies that are queer centric. I know there's this one with a devil guy running around LA.
Oh, that is 2004's Hellbent. It was the first gay slasher film directed by Paul Etheridge. Yeah, that movie was shot during the West Hollywood Carnival and was really very groundbreaking at the time. I'm sure that modern audiences would watch it and be like, we know this. But like the difference was it was all gay casts, you know, and a gay story and a gay killer. There actually have been many, many queer horror films. In fact, I participated in a book that a colleague of mine put together and edited called Queer Horror, a Film Guide, and there's over 1,000 entries. It's an encyclopedia, basically, of like, here are all the movies with overt, not subtext, overt queerness in film. And it was just to illustrate that we've always been here. And one of the things that I do talk about, especially with regard to the queer connection to the horror genre, is the modern perception, I think, because of gatekeepers, because of people who control studios and control stories, is this kind of surprise that there is a queer connection. But the reality is that in many ways, queer horror is an oxymoron because it's our genre to begin with. Like horror, by definition, is a genre of otherness. It's a genre of subversion. And queer people know what it means to be treated other. We know what it means to be treated subversive by society. And throughout history, even before movies, if you look at Gothic literature, for example, Sheridan Le Fanu writes Carmilla, which is about a lesbian vampire who preys on young maidens. And that book is what influenced Bram Stoker to write Dracula. You do not get the most famous vampire in pop culture without a lesbian vampire first. We have the trajectory of queerness influencing horror from the beginning. It's actually our genre. We just let the world convince other people that they got it. We're just now taking it back. That's what's happening.
Or equally, Oscar Wilde and The Portrait of Dorian Gray.
Yes, exactly.
But what I think would be interesting now is getting more of the trans component of it. Because, yeah, sadly, we had a point in time when we had the binary. Yeah. So now we have the trans and we have the non-binary too. So it's also interesting to see the perspective that they're bringing to that. And are there some of the other contributors also bringing some of those perspectives into?
Oh, yes, absolutely. There are some really, really great trans stories and non-binary stories throughout the book. And I'm really excited about the approach because it's true. I think that there is this belief that if you make the definitive, like, gay horror film or lesbian horror film, then, oh, Hollywood did its job. And I'm like, no, there are other letters in that acronym. And those lived experiences are very different. And each of those people deserve to have those stories told. And even within one of those letters, there's a vast, yeah. Exactly. And so that so many stories, and I think that our job as queer creators, in addition to
we all have
just
different perspectives, even
doing
within,
what we do and making art,
our
is
singular
to champion
letter or multiple
the art
letters
of other folks,
if you
because
identify with more than
until
one. So there's
everybody's
so many
story
stories.
it has an opportunity to be heard, we have work to do, I think. So
Very much so. And the African saying that until we have the story from the lion, we only get the hunters.
That's really good.
So with that, we're going to go ahead and take a pause here, and we'll come back for our second half here on Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. I'm Perry Clark, licensed marriage and family therapist, here with Jadzia Axelrod and and Michael
I like that.
Varrati.
Thank you. I don't know why I screw up names like that, but stay tuned, folks. We'll be back shortly.
Our lives and the world around us can get messy and frustrating. Untangle and Grow Counseling's focus is to untangle that mess and make sense of it, so you have a good foundation to build and grow from. Visit us on the web at untangleandgrowcounseling.com. Perry Clark offers individual psychotherapy, couples and family therapy, and adolescence therapy from a variety of coping materials and resources. Visit untangleandgrowcounseling.com for more information.
Discover the power of music to heal and uplift. Introducing NeuroVibe, where rhythm meets recovery. NeuroVibe fuses ambient music textures with rhythmic layers to create music that goes beyond relaxation. It's crafted to resonate deeply, perfect for relaxation, self-reflection, or therapeutic sessions. NeuroVibe invites you to connect with your inner self through immersive sound. Explore NeuroVibe today on SoundCloud and experience the transformative power of music. Tune in, find your vibe, and discover what NeuroVibe can do for you. For more information, check out NeuroVibe on SoundCloud today at soundcloud.com/NeuroVibe-BrainSpotting. NeuroVibe is intended for general wellness and relaxation purposes and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Explore NeuroVibe now on SoundCloud. Dive in, find your rhythm, and feel better with NeuroVibe.
Voice America is on LinkedIn. Connect with us today.
You are listening to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. If you have a question or comment about our podcast, send an email to pclark@untyingknotspodcast.com. That's pclark@untyingknotspodcast.com. And now, back to the program.
Hello all, welcome back to Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. I'm Perry Clark, licensed marriage and family therapist, here with Jadzia and Michael. I'm not going to try and do last names this time around. So we talked a bit in our first half about what was going on with the Valentine's Day story. And Jadzia, you sort of hinted at some of the things for Rosh Hashanah, but can we go into a little more detail on that?
Certainly. So this story is based on an old Jewish folktale about a man who would take his sins and put them in a bag, and instead of asking for forgiveness for them, would just throw them into the ocean and didn't have to worry about it. And then, of course, all of those sins over many, many years accumulate and turn into this giant monster that threatens him and his family, and then he has to pray for forgiveness and to get rid of them. And so that idea always stuck with me. I've found it to be a very compelling idea of like having your sins tangible enough that you can throw them in a bag. And when coming up with my version of that story, wanting to tell it, and thinking about that something in the Jewish tradition, a sin can be a big thing. But more often than not, what we're talking about is lies that we tell and rudeness that we do. But mainly, and so the lies that we have to tell when we are queer and closeted, and to kind of make sure that we can survive in that way. Those are necessary lies, but also they are lies, and they are offending not necessarily the people that we tell them to, but the people that we omit with these lies. The people, if we say that we're, instead of going out on a date with another woman, we say, "Oh no, I was out with Bernie," and like, Rachel, who you were on a date with before, is now not a person anymore, because of your lie, and your relationship then is hidden and made shameful. And so that was really the contextual of it. So to put it all together then, to have this teenage girl who is feeling out her first relationship for the first time, and it is with another woman, and they are together, but only in very secret ways, in ways that people can't know, and our heroine, if you can call it that in this story, lies to protect her, and lies to protect herself, and lies to protect the relationship from a community that would definitely not understand. And each lie that she tells, and Rye did an amazing thing visually with this, is that each lie that she tells, the word balloon turns into this little demon that then bites her on the hand. And and so she keeps all of these little demon guys, these little sins, these little lies, in a box in her closet, naturally. And at some point, there's too many lies for the box and too many for the closet, and they attack her. But that idea of like these things that these sins that we do to protect ourselves are still sins. They still hurt people. And there is forgiveness that we have to ask for that. And it's not to God. It's not necessarily to the people we tell the lies to. It's the people we tell the lies about. And those are the people who need to forgive us for that. And that was just a really fun story to tell. It was really something that both Ryan and I were really into once we got started on it. I did a bunch of research for Rye about locations in the 50s here in the city of Philadelphia that they used in illustrating, and to just make it feel more real. And it does have this wonderful tangible quality. There's this panel where our lead like goes into the narrow row home that she lives in with her parents, and there's her dad watching television, and her mom comes out of the kitchen. And it just feels very
this story
real
has
and actual. And
remind me of the Golden Myth as well.
I love what Rye brought to
that sort of
the
sin
story
coming back
and that tangible
coming
quality.
back after
They
everyone.
do so well.
But I also know from the therapy side of it, as you said, the lies we tell others, the lies we tell about each other, and the lies we tell ourselves. And if anything, you got to be the best liar to yourself.
So yeah, it's really a horror story about the wounds that we inflict on ourselves, thanks to the closet, and thanks to the intolerance of others who would keep us in that closet. And so that's the scary thing to me. And then we dress it up with little demon guys with teeth.
Yeah,
and
well,
fangs.
because especially with horror, we need some form of externalization or projection that
the intolerance
allows the viewer
couple
to
who just want to make out
click
like
in
every
that this
horny
is the
teenager.
supernatural component or horror component of it, versus so much of our lives don't actually have those moments that we can point to say the devil's over there.
One of the things I really loved from an editor's standpoint about this story, too, was you mentioned the balloons being part of the monstrosity, and just the metatextual weaving. I love the idea of the word balloons becoming the monster or the thing that is stowed away. When I saw those pages, I was like, that's so cool. That is really, really just such a cool way to illustrate, no pun intended, that when our words are out in the world, they do take shape, they do take form. And I thought it was really, really smart and fun, but also like fun with purpose. And I really, really thought that turned out so cool. I cannot wait for people to read your story.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Thank you. Yeah, the comics medium can do so much. Like, that's something you could only do in comics. It would be hard. It would be hard to do that. Not impossible, I guess, with modern visual effects too. We've seen movies where people speak and the words come out. But to have something that is so intrinsic to the comic space, like a word balloon that you're supposed to not see and that we're used to not seeing, and then suddenly have that change and that be something that you are supposed to see and the characters interact with.
Standpoint, and this also becomes sort of a representation of the
was something
inner voice. But is it actually your inner voice, or is it the voices of everyone else who's said things that you now are taking for yourself? And they became these word balloons.
Yeah, I think in this case particularly, they are separate from our heroine, who are saying these things and doesn't mean them.
So what are some of the other stories that you know about that we should be looking forward to?
They're not hers.
Yeah, I know we mentioned the Juneteenth and the 4th of July one, but what are some of the other ones that we should be looking forward to? That, of course, we don't want to give too many spoilers, but just want to whet the appetite.
Well, I mean, it is a cheat of an answer, but I don't think that we would have put this collection of people together and not say that they're all worth reading, because every single creator in this book brought something dynamite. But also, to Jadzia's point, they approached the holiday or time of year with a specificity that felt personal. And it's true. Jadzia made the point that we all internalize holidays and times of the year in a scope of how we grew up, or like through certain traditions, or maybe traditions we didn't have, or how we celebrated, or how we didn't. That becomes so unique and so particular to our lived experience that these stories reveal things, I think, probably about people's connections to these holidays in different ways. And that was the thing that I really, really enjoyed about looking at all of the pieces. We do have a Christmas story that Victor Kearney is doing. I know that John Macy did one about the Door Alley Fair. We have a May Day story from Dave Davenport. There are truly great approaches to different times of year, and sometimes times of year that maybe you don't think about because that holiday was not significant to you. But for somebody else, May Day is like, this is triggering because boom, 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 boom. And I think that was what was really exciting. I knew when we put the call out that there would be some that would be no-brainers in terms of, I think if you press any creative person, they could come up with a Halloween story. And our Halloween story is great. I really love our Halloween story. If you press a creative person, they could probably come up with a great Christmas story, because I'm not religious at all, but I've written many, many holiday movies because I think Christmas is a fun time of year visually. I also like a lot of the lore about Christmas that is not associated with the Judeo-Christian stuff. Christmas is a horrifying holiday, by the way. If you are not tapped into some of this stuff, like in the Scandinavian regions, instead of Santa Claus, they've got all sorts of things that are looking to eat you at the holidays. And I love that.
Krampus.
The Krampus, the Yule Cat, there's all sorts of different things. But that being said, Christmas is monolithic. Whether you celebrate it or not, it is in your face. So somebody can come up with a Christmas story. And I love the stories that we have. But I think that one of the great things about the book was seeing the approaches to holidays that maybe not everybody immediately leaps to when they think of the calendar year, but are there nonetheless. And those are the stories that, like, the personal aspects all do jump out, but it is with the specificity and the passion that makes the stories really exciting to me. And so I think every single creator, for different reasons, brought something that made me fall in love with the fact that we did this book. So,
well, it kind of makes me want to see what was done for Ramadan and Diwali, even the Day of the Dead. So it's like some of those it's going to be interesting to see. So I'm looking forward to it, and I've already committed that I will be putting my money towards this.
Well, amazing. Thank you.
Yep. So once it opens, I will definitely be putting some of the budget on that.
Money well spent. Yeah, it's just a treasure trove. Like looking at the list of creators, like it sounds cheap to say, but it's true. Like I feel honored to be among this group because it's such talent. So many cool people who are known for their unique perspectives and for their own storytelling styles. And so
this is a slightly different area to go into,
one book,
but I'm kind of then curious.
Such a gift.
With works like this, what would be things that are people who want to support it and maybe even create other variants of this? What are the things that you would want them to know? Both, this is here's the headache that we encountered. Here's the glory we found with it, about projects of this nature.
Oh, that's all you, Michael. Mine was easy. I just wrote it and they said, this is great. And then Rye turned in the art and you guys said it was great. So I had a very easy time. So I guess my advice would be do something really good and partner with someone else who's really good.
There is, but I think
you'll have a good time
what you said there in a lot of ways inherently is
more.
A definitive answer, because I've had the great joy of being involved in anthology projects now, both in print and in film anthologies. And really, it's about trusting your creatives. I think that when Tara and I built the list, there was never a question of when we went out to people or, we asked friends to reach out to their colleagues that the people we were asking weren't going to do it. In terms of could not turn in a story that we believed in. It was that thing where you put together your wish list of who are the creators that make you excited to pick up a book and to read a story, to see the art. And it's sort of you don't know unless you ask. And a project like this is kind of like going through the catalog and circling all the things that you want and just hope that it's all available. And so that's really we created the backbone, we created the structure of what it needed to be, and then we made our wish list. And that was the thing that was so really affirming, was the wish list was a group of people whose art we are in awe of and whose work we are fans of. And it was just the hope that they understood the vision that we communicated enough that they would want to say yes. So really, I think from the standpoint of a producer, a editor, make sure that when you are reaching out to somebody, you are communicating in the clearest lines and ways possible what your goals are. And if you're excited about it, hopefully they'll be excited about it. And that's really when, sounding the call, waving the banner to get people involved. You have to be the biggest cheerleader of both your project, but also of the people that you're asking to be part of it. And I really do believe that we were so lucky because we secretly, when we were looking at the list, oh my God, we hope this person does it because they're amazing. And I love this and I love this. And I just read this. Oh my gosh, this person just put this out. I hope they're free to do this because blah, 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 blah. And so it's really any project, shoot for the stars, and just be open about it. That's how I feel.
Lovely. Perfect. Well, anything else you guys want to cover in the time we got left here?
The one thing I've been saying about this that I think is a fun way to use the book when it comes out is you can sit and read it all in one sitting, or because it technically is a calendar year, and it will be arranged as such. So the book literally begins with January and ends with December. And depending on the holiday or event yield of a month, sometimes 1 month may have more than one story, but you could make Four Seasons of Fear a year-long celebration in that you could sit with the book and read the January story and put it down if you have the self-control to do so. But that's what I think that's the fun thing about this.
I love that. a new holiday
Exactly.
tradition.
I think that there's more than one way to enjoy this book, and that's one of the other things that really excites me about it. It's like you can do it all in one sitting, or you can parse it out throughout the year and have a little bit of queer fear all year long.
Kind of like getting together and telling ghost stories, not necessarily on Halloween, like most people think of, but also telling ghost stories in Christmas, which is also a Victorian habit.
Especially in the UK. Yeah.
Yeah. All righty. So we're going to make sure we have the list to the Kickstarter in the show notes. But if people wanted to find out more or contact you or float some projects your way, where can they find you guys?
My website is jadziaaxelrod.com. Recently updated, so feel free to use that. I'm also on Blue Sky at planetx.bsky.social. And I'm on there too much, so you'll probably see me there. Those are the two ways to find me on the internet.
As for me, I am Michael Varrati, my name, on Instagram and Blue Sky. Those are the two best places to find me. And you can probably reach out through the Kickstarter as well. Tara knows how to get in touch with me. And yeah, we're just happy to hear from you.
Oh, and also pitch your other podcasts, because this is a good chance for that too. Yeah,
right, yes.
Get some cross-posting.
A little cross-posting. That's right. Every other Wednesday at midnight, I co-host the show Midnight Mass, which I do with drag icon Peaches Christ, wherein we discover and discuss and celebrate our favorite cult films and yours. In addition to that, Peaches and I are about to hit the road this summer, where we're doing a live road show, and we are going to be screening the movie Sleepaway Camp, where we'll be joined by the star Felissa Rose, where we're going to talk about that movie and its relation to queer audiences and unpack some of its different aspects. And we are very excited to be out there and meet you. Those are the two things to keep an eye out for.
Very nice. And like I said, we'll have... Yeah, please.
And since we're cross-posting, if I may, Justice League Dream Girls, the DC Pride event, is happening this June. It's a weekly mini-series that I wrote with Nicole Maines, focusing on Justice League's two trans women superheroes, Galaxy and Dreamer. It's got a huge array of guest artists coming in, some of whom are queer, some of them who are not. It's a absolutely beautiful mini-series about two friends who are trying desperately to help each other and also getting in their own way, and dealing with, of course, evil that threatens the realities
just trying to be a superhero.
Exactly so. So that comes out every single week in June. A prequel of sorts, Justice League Intergalactic, came out in April. You can probably still find an issue of that sets up the whole miniseries. This thing has been I don't want to say culmination, because we're still going to do stories after this with these characters, but it's certainly the latest chapter in a story that Nicole and I have been telling independently and together with these characters, that started with Galaxy the Prettiest Star and then moved on with Nicole's Dreamers books and my Galaxy books, and just coming together in this way this year has been really wonderful, and it's been a great project to be a part of. And if you like queer comics, it doesn't get gayer than that one. So by all means, get there. And we have wonderful horror imagery in there as well, because you can't have dreams without nightmares.
Very true.
And
very true.
I think people who like Four Seasons of Fear will also enjoy Justice League Dream Girls, if they can handle the fact that it's about superheroes.
Yeah, because I know we've all got a bit of a superhero fatigue nowadays. Wow. And, I'll again put in my own shameless plugs here for my... Well, I'll start with Maverick Kinsey with, again, Friends of Dorothy and Saturday the 14th. And then, of course, The Year of the Goat with the other 12 authors for our Call of Cthulhu through the Miskatonic Repository, findable on DriveThruRPG. So stay tuned, folks. We got one more coming we're actually going to be having an interview with Tara, and I think it's Sonia are going to be on our other episode talking about this. And,
fantastic.
Put your dollars towards it. I know it's a tough time for all of that, but it's worth it because we need our own media.
Thank you so much.
Not a problem.
Thank you.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for tuning in for Untying Knots, Minds and Souls Untethered. Be sure to join your host, Perry Clark, for another episode on the podcast coming soon on the Voice America Empowerment Channel.
Discover the power of music to heal and uplift. Introducing NeuroVibe, where rhythm meets recovery. NeuroVibe fuses ambient music textures with rhythmic layers to create music that goes beyond relaxation. It's crafted to resonate deeply, perfect for relaxation, self-reflection, or therapeutic sessions. NeuroVibe invites you to connect with your inner self through immersive sound. Explore NeuroVibe today on SoundCloud and experience the transformative power of music. Tune in, find your vibe, and discover what NeuroVibe can do for you. For more information, check out NeuroVibe on SoundCloud today at soundcloud.com/NeuroVibe Brainspotting. NeuroVibe is intended for general wellness and relaxation purposes and is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Explore NeuroVibe now on SoundCloud. Dive in, find your rhythm, and feel better with NeuroVibe.